Paul Stewart has not been named as a target of the FBI's probe of police and fire pension dealings, but months ago the pension board voted to pay for criminal attorneys to represent Stewart and union president Marty Bandemir. Many officers wonder why Stewart would retire in the middle of his union term and right in the middle of contract negotiations. And they wonder if union president Marty Bandemir will be next to leave with a parting gift. A few weeks ago, the Channel 7 investigators got calls from several cops. They wanted us to check out a report that Paul Stewart got a free car from the DPOA as a retirement gift. They wondered why the union would give him such an extravagant gift, especially considering that he'd lawyered up in the corruption probe and left the union VP job in the middle of his term. We investigated and discovered the car story is true. The union's executive board voted to give Paul Stewart this fully loaded 2010 Jeep Grand Cherokee when he retired May 30th. Here's how the motion was worded in the executive board minutes: to allow Vice President Paul Stewart upon retirement the option of keeping his union vehicle at no charge or $5,000 for a trip to a destination of his choice in continuing his past practice as appreciation for years of dedicated service. Stewart took the car. Later, the full union board took a vote on rescinding the free car, but fell a few votes short. I talked to several veteran cops who were shocked by the free car. They didn't want to go on camera, but they said they didn't even know union leaders drove free cars, and they certainly didn't know they were given to them when they retired. John Bennett, an outspoken cop who operates a website called Detroit Uncovered, did go on the record.
Most people who retire get a ring. I think giving him a $50,000 vehicle is a little bit extreme. If we're going to call out the city for waste and abuse, we certainly have to call out our own leadership.
And that's not all the DPOA leaders are being called out on. In a minute, you'll see why the investigators followed them to a local restaurant after getting tips from union members. Now, back to the Paul Stewart retirement.
Motion for the refunds.
The Action News investigators showed up at a pension board meeting shortly before Stewart stepped down. We approached him in the hallway during a break.
I just want to ask you why you're leaving the DPOA in the middle of your term.
Stewart ducked us, so we caught up with him a couple of weeks later on the first day of his retirement.
I want to know if you're leaving because of the federal investigation, and I want to know...
33 years of public service, I have a right to retire.
It's not because of the federal investigation.
Scott,
is it because of the federal investigation?
What investigation?
Yes or no?
No.
It isn't.
No.
Stewart says he has a sterling record as a cop, and he is not the target of the pension probe. He says all retiring DPOA leaders have gotten cars for the last 8 or 9 years. But Officer Bennett, who's now running for Stewart's vacant pension board seat, says the free car raises questions about the judgment of top union leaders.
When we're in contract negotiations, we're under the specter of having a financial manager. You got the feds looking into our pension fund, so it's not the right thing to do, and it's certainly the wrong time to do it.
The police department is buzzing with speculation that President Marty Bandemir is also about to step down and take his loaded avalanche with him. A source in the retirement system tells Action News Bandemir made an appointment to hand in his retirement papers a few weeks ago, but later backed away. Bandemir and Stewart were chided in a recent Free Press investigation along with other pension board members for taking extravagant trips with pension board money.
I think most of the membership has said, and they've been saying, that it's time for some changes. They're not happy with the leadership. Certainly those guys have put in a lot of years, but you can stay someplace too long, and I think that's probably the case.
And then there's the drinking issue. The Action News investigators have been told by numerous reliable sources that Stewart and Bandemir spend quite a bit of time at the bar while they're on the clock. A couple of weeks ago, we got a tip that they were heading to their favorite watering hole, Sinbad's Restaurant, for a long liquid lunch. We went in with our undercover camera and watched them drink. They spent over 2 hours at the restaurant. Why should you care if leaders of the police union are drinking on the clock? Because few people are aware of it, but the bulk of their salaries are paid with tax dollars. They get about $50,000 a year in a police salary and more on top of that from the union, but they do no police work. In fact, a lot of leaders in public employee unions are paid with tax dollars. But that'll come to an end if Representative Marty Nolenberg has his way. He's introduced a bill in Lansing banning the use of public funds for union salaries.
I want my teachers to be teaching. I want my police officers to be doing law enforcement. And I think that's the taxpayers expect that. It's not anti-union. It simply says taxpayer money should not be used for union-related activity.
And they certainly shouldn't be boozing it up on your dime. When I asked Paul Stewart if he drinks on the clock, he said, that's against department policy. But he wouldn't give me a yes or no. I left 2 detailed messages for Union President Marty Bandemir and never got a call back. Nolenberg's legislation passed the House, and it comes up for discussion this week in a Senate committee. Our undercover video is likely to add some fuel to that debate. Officer John Bennett, while critical of his own union leaders, is against the legislation, saying it's an attack on organized labor. Scott Lewis, Channel 7 Action News.